Number 5. Camp Wilson. So, we find ourselves in a truly remarkable moment as a new wave of UFO sightings takes center stage this year, and NASA can no longer afford to turn a blind eye to this unexplained phenomenon. Together, let's travel to the California desert, where an event unfolded that eerily echoes the famous 1997 Phoenix Lights incident. Now, if you're a fan of a channel, you've heard me talk about this before. If not, I've done plenty of other videos on it. Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, known for their groundbreaking investigations, brought to light footage from April of 2021, filmed over 29 palms. This sighting is far from your typical blurry UFO footage. The object, described as a giant black triangular shape with lights on its edges, was captured from multiple angles by 6 videos, with the accompanying high-exposure photograph revealing even more detail. Witnesses, including over 50 U.S. Marines, were baffled by the object's sudden appearance, size, and behavior. Like I said before, the incident closely resembles the Phoenix Lights, where a massive triangular UFO was witnessed by thousands. It's important to note that the witnesses in this case aren't your average civilians. They are trained military personnel, artillerymen, and mortarmen who have dealt with illumination rounds in various military aircraft. And their unanimous conclusion? This was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Specifically speaking, a mortarman serving at Camp Wilson during this incident spoke with Corbell and took a high-exposure photo on his smartphone, which revealed the outline of, this object. It appears to be triangular, surrounded by lights spaced evenly around its edge in a V formation. Now, the mortarman, who was staying anonymous for safety reasons, described how one of his companions witnessed the object materialize from nowhere, saying, "One of my buddies was outside. He was looking at the sky and said it just kind of appeared out of nowhere. And we all came out and looked, and then slowly like 50 plus people started coming out and looking. Those lights appeared out of nowhere." Hey, he said it twice. He was adamant. He added that despite their military experience, none of the Marines could recognize the craft, and described their reaction as, you guessed it, baffled. Now, this man who filmed and photographed the object said, "If you look at the picture, you can see a black triangular shape. With the picture I took with the black triangular shape underneath the lights, it's definitely not any type of flare thing or illumination rounds." The witness said the apparent object remained stationary for approximately 10 minutes. But also, like, a Marine can be overheard on one of the videos saying that the triangle might have been in motion. Another Marine who saw it was serving as an artilleryman at the base when he saw the UFO. He firmly rejected any suggestions that the lights could be attributed to illumination rounds that could have been, sent off by artillery or any other mundane explanation he might have recognized, saying this was something none of us had ever seen before. It was a completely different color. The size and the illumination was different. He explained that when they fire off illumination rounds, it's one. You send it in the air and let it drop, and then you send off another one. This was like 5 next to each other, and they're kind of reddish, and our usual illumination rounds are a yellow-white color. The UFO's disappearance, just as illumination rounds were fired over it, adds a layer of mystery. Helicopters and a massive military convoy swiftly converged on the scene, leaving us to ponder what exactly was the government's involvement in all this. The parallels between this and Phoenix Lights are undeniable. Both incidents feature large triangular objects with lights hovering over military facilities and then inexplicably vanishing. It's a real head-scratcher. And as more details emerge, it's clear that NASA and other space agencies will need to address the growing body of evidence related to these unidentified aerial phenomena, which is something I've been saying for, how many months have I been here again? Number 4, the Go Fast video. So this video, uploaded by the UFO investigative group To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences in March of 2018, was secured by a Freedom of Information Act request to the US government. The video was taken in 2015 off of the East Coast by an FA-18F fighter jet using the aircraft's onboard Raytheon AN/ASQ-228 Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared Pod, also known as ATF-LIR. I know myself too well, I'm gonna trip over my tongue if I try saying that more than once, so it should be called ATF for short. ATF is designed to allow pilots to track, target, and destroy targets on the ground at ranges of up to 40 miles. Now, it should be noted that ATF is good at spotting, but not engaging aerial targets. The video, nicknamed Go Fast by To the Stars, starts by explaining the various numbers and symbols that appear in the footage. Things like the aircraft's altitude, which was around 25,000 feet, and the fact that the ATF was pointed ahead and to the left of the Super Hornet. The readout also explains that the aircraft was traveling at 252 knots and in a 5-degree turn, and the unknown object was approximately 4.4 nautical miles away. The video shows the Super Hornet's weapon system operator repeatedly trying to acquire the UFO with the ATF's built-in auto tracker, which can, pick out an object and keep it centered on camera. After 2 tries, the weapons system officer, or WSO, shouts, "Whoa, got it!" To which another person, assumed to be the pilot, says, "Woohoo, whoa!" Not to sound like Mario or anything. "What the bleep is that thing?" the pilot asks. The WSO later says, "Oh my gosh, dude," to which the pilot replies, "Whoa. what is that, man? Now yes, this is where skeptics might start asking, but Alexa, how is this unknown object different from weird government aircrafts we don't know about? Well, doubters, let me count thy ways. For starters, the UFO does not have any kind of hot exhaust trail that would be emitted by a conventional turbine engine, appearing to emit no heat on the ATF sensor. And secondly, the UFO doesn't have any visible wings or fins. Through my research, I've learned that even cruise missiles such as the American Tomahawk or Russian Caliber have small winglets that should be visible, and other missiles such as the Maverick anti-tank missile have stubby fins. The UFO appears oval-like and does not appear to fly nose first in the direction of travel. So once again, this was a video hidden and released by the government, so NASA, any comment? Number 3, Las Vegas aliens. Wanna go gambling? One sighting this year in Las Vegas shows shadowy figures lurking somewhere in the shot. You can watch the creepy footage, and see if you can spot them. This video is one of many supposed UFO sightings in Vegas just this year, with another sighting around the incident even involving a police officer. But this particular video shows a group of people looking kinda nervous as they look into a backyard behind a house, with the camera zooming in on a forklift truck which has shadowy figures looking inside. Now, there was a fair bit of confusion over where the extraterrestrials are in the video, but many people insist they're there, including me. For example, one comment wrote, "You can see their face, eyes glowing in the first tractor. Then look at the second one, you can see it peeking. They're on like 8 to 10 feet tall." Another wrote, "Face a little left of the center of the circle, you can see the eyes in the mouth." So this video could offer fresh insight into the plethora of encounters and sightings that Vegas has recently seen. Police body cam footage emerged in June showing lights hovering in the sky before plummeting to the ground in a suspected UFO crash landing sighting. Officers carried out an extensive search following reports of the mysterious figures, with no new evidence being uncovered. However, an eyewitness to the suspected crash landing spoke out and claimed they witnessed the whole thing, and even stumbled across an extraterrestrial. Apparently, my brother told me to look behind the forklift, and I did. I saw the alien creature. So when I saw it, it was a tall, skinny, lengthy creature, according to this YouTuber. He was a gray-greenish color, and when I looked it in the eyes, my whole body just froze. Bear in mind, I'm looking at his whole body. He has weird-looking feet and a big face and eyes. Yes, there could be numerous theories about the existence of alien life. Many people believe that the universe is simply too big for us to be alone, no matter how unlikely life is to develop. I'm with that. One theory about why we haven't encountered aliens is that we are being snubbed by the galactic community, either because we're too stupid or too nasty, which fair. Another interesting idea is that intelligent life has evolved several times in the universe. However, the lifespan of an intelligent civilization compared to the universe as a whole is so relatively short that intelligent civilizations might never have coexisted, as one goes extinct before another emerges. Let me know in the comments what your theories are. Number 2, CBP footage. US Customs and Border Protection, so CBP for short, quietly released a slew of records and videos of UFOs in August of this year. Specifically, 12 videos, which were released in response to a Freedom of Information Act request, all of which allegedly contained footage of UFOs. Now, all the footage is available for download and is accompanied by a UFO report titled The Pentagon's UAP Task Force, Mideast Security and Police Studies number 183. The report is an older document said to be written by Frank Milburn and had something to do with the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies at the Bar Ilan University. It's unclear precisely what the report has to do with the videos, which are pretty stunning on their own. One of the videos clearly shows an orb flying in close proximity to a plane, to the point where it appears the orb is chasing the plane through the sky. It's clear the object isn't moving like any other craft known to man. Most of the footage appears to show some type of orb following an aircraft or flying over land, and in one particular video, we can see one of these super fast objects glide over what appears to be some type of urban development or military base. So what are these orbs? We have no idea. They've shown up consistently around army installations and seem particularly fascinated with military activity. But other than that, we're still none the wiser as to what the heck is going on in our skies. The videos, some of which leaked already a few years back, have added fuel to the already raging fire of public discourse around flying saucers. One video in particular from 2013 shows an unidentifiable spot flying over an airport. The video is black and white and the footage is a little grainy, and the object, whatever it is, cruises over the airport at what appears to be a consistent rate, on a path taking it towards the ocean. It doesn't look at all that unusual. Like if you had already told me it was a bird or a small, UAP, I'd believe it. But the trouble starts when it gets near the water and appears to change shape. Shortly thereafter, the object seems to disappear, reappear, and then vanish for good. Some folks have interpreted that as the object having dipped beneath the water and emerged again, seemingly without losing any speed, which would be an impressive engineering achievement. But the video is so poor, it could just as easily be a digital artifact. Look, we've filled the space around us with a growing number of cameras and orbiting satellites, and they're recording all the time. More than that, we as humans are creating more technology, some of which isn't public knowledge. It was probably inevitable that we would start to catch things on camera that we can't explain. But there's a pretty big gap between, look at that weird thing, and I bet it came from across the stars. Still, there's some weird stuff going on in the sky, and hey NASA, we should probably devote some resources to figuring out what it is. With that in mind though, apparently Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Mike Rounds introduced an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act, which would establish a structure for how and when UAP documents would be released to the public. So for example, for decades, many Americans have been fascinated by, what the heck's out there, and it's long past time they got some answers. The Americans, Canadians, everybody has a right to learn about technologies of unknown origins, non-human intelligence, and unexplainable phenomena. So apparently we're not only working to declassify what the government has previously learned about these, phenomena, but also to create a pipeline for future research to be made public. The bill requires that the government agencies turn over any UAP information they possess within 300 days of the act going into effect. All of which is to say we're at least like a year and a half out from seeing the extraterrestrial goods, so I'm gonna keep screaming at NASA if you don't mind. Number 1, George Aga Footage. So over the last year, if you couldn't tell by today, unexplainable objects have been appearing in the sky, baffling a lot of folks, especially pilots. So some pilots believe that these fast orbiting objects aren't satellites or known military aircraft. Specifically, pilot George Aga remembers the event of what he claims was the most frightening experience of his life, where a circular object flew directly in front of his plane and whizzed directly by his window. He and his co-pilot Daniel were flying towards Medellin when they noticed the strange object. Now thankfully our pilot was able to turn his plane around and the unidentified object moved towards them. He also caught the first video of the stationary object. He was able to fly past the object, and he doesn't think it was a balloon because ideally the wind from the plane should have blown it away. The pilot believes that whatever he saw was, once again, not a balloon by any measure, as he was way too high up and it was way too cold for a balloon to float free. Soon after he posted the video on Twitter, it was uploaded by an Instagram handle named The Hood's Finest, and the video went viral and viewers speculated that what he saw was definitely a UFO. The pilot claims the aircraft was traveling at a speed of 300 kilometers an hour, with temperatures falling close to around 5. And in those conditions, mistaking a balloon or a bird for a UFO is very unlikely. Once again, hey NASA, wanna weigh in? Number 5, Italian Observatory. So back in 2007, astronomer Alberto Mayer, living in Busto Aresizio, I think I got that right, over in Italy, made an incredible discovery, almost completely by accident, which, hey, that's how most scientific progress gets made. Or maybe just me. He was adjusting the focus of his telescope when he spotted and tracked a UFO as it flew across the surface of the moon. Now the video shows the portions of the moon that he was focused on in close-up mode, while tracking a solid black object as it flew over the surface. Now sure, I could just describe what is going on in this video, but I could also let you see it and decide for yourselves, which makes a lot more sense in my brain. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so here's roughly, here the one, 24,000 words worth of content if my math makes sense, which is about a 50-50 chance. Take a look. Pretty weird, eh? So the round black object is tracked as he catches, it just after it passes the Wallace crater. And today this is how I'm learning parts of the moon were named. It hovers and hesitates before making a sudden change of path at an exact 45-degree angle. The precision and control is what gives people pause, since it seems to move as if it's being controlled, and with such mechanical dominance that it seems like it has to be something being intentionally driven, not just a strange rock floating throughout the stars. Commenters on the video pointed out that the object doesn't decrease in size at all, suggesting that the object isn't that close to the moon, and rules out the theory that this is a shadow on the surface of the moon from a large object. Now look, I'm one girl, I'm only capable of so much. The science stuff, kind of outside of my range of expertise, but I can confirm and offer my, speculation on UFO videos. And this is something. To quote one of my favorite phrases at the moment, I suppose, to be determined. Number 4, the footage the Pentagon refuses to release from Alaska. So between February 4th to the 12th, earlier this year, 4 different unidentified objects were forcibly taken down from the skies over Alaska, South Carolina, the Yukon, and the Great Lakes. While cockpit audio from F-16 pilots who, took down the UFO over Lake Huron was released, a spokesman for the Pentagon has confirmed that footage will not be released in the near future, being quoted directly as saying, "I can tell you that there is not currently any images or video footage that we can release. The imagery remains classified and I have not received any information as to the potential timeline on a change in classification." So usual government speak. This refusal is a drastic difference in comparison to the quick release of an Air Force photo of what was believed to be a Chinese spy balloon that was brought down at the same time over on the East Coast, and footage from where a Russian plane appeared to intentionally collide with a drone last March. Noted UFO researcher John Greenwald requested the footage and photos of the UFO, takedowns be released via a Freedom of Information Act, with the Pentagon claiming national security exemptions to deny this request. Because, that's not scary at all. An Air Force official said that the images would reveal cryptology and national security concerns if released. And even the, Canadian RCMP are playing coy, having ended their public search for the remains. Now look, I don't know about you folks at home, but that sounds pretty dang suspicious to me, and I think I know what I'm talking about at this point. So does anybody want to take a random trip to the Yukon just to sightsee? You know, totally not to recover UFO debris or anything suspicious? I'll start the car. I got room for a couple of us. I drive a nice big SUV. Number 3, the Guy Hotel Memo. So it's the most requested document in the FBI's archives, right after the photo of Elvis and Nixon riding with an alien. I wish I could make this stuff up, but the file has been checked out roughly 1 million times in the last 2 years alone. So as far as cagey cover-ups go, this one's fairly out in the open, but that doesn't make it any less invigorating or confounding. It's a single page, an unconfirmed report that the FBI never even followed up on. The file in question? So it's a memo dated back to March of 1950, authored by one Guy Hotel, who served as the director of the FBI field office in Washington, D.C., addressed to FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. I know you all know that name. So in the memo, Guy was relaying a story seen by an Air Force pilot about something bizarre they had seen in New Mexico, and this was right around the time of Roswell fever. The memo describes flying saucers, circular in shape with raised centers, approximately 50 feet in diameter. It goes on to say that inside each saucer was a flight crew, each occupied by 3 bodies of roughly human shape, but only 3 feet tall and bandaged in a manner similar to blackout suits used by speed flyers and test pilots. The memo goes on to claim that the crafts were found because an aircraft radar had interfered with the controlling mechanisms of the saucer, and concludes by saying, no further evaluation was ever attempted. I don't know about you, but it seems like this should be a significantly bigger deal than that. No further evaluation? Oh, that's fine. Somebody in the Air Force claims they saw a series of flying saucers piloted by tiny men in shiny spacesuits, not even 3 years after the Roswell incident, kind of took over New Mexico. But hey, it's nothing. At least I guess there's some comfort in knowing that the government has always behaved like this when it comes to investigating and reporting on possible UAP and UFO sightings. I believe it's worth mentioning that Project Blue Book was launched not even 2 years later, investigating UFO sightings in the Air Force, so once again, giving the government my usual dose of side-eye, and like, yo, what the heck? Number 2, Ryan Graves' report. So Ryan Graves is a studied Air Force pilot, an FA-18 Super Hornet pilot specifically, who has flown the skies for 10 years, and has seen countless UFOs in his time flying for the Navy, seen a lot of things he can't explain. He has recently spoke out saying these things would be out there all day. Keeping an aircraft in the air requires a significant amount of, the speeds that we have observed. 12 hours in the air is about 11 hours longer than we'd expect. On one particular incident, back in late 2014, a Super Hornet pilot nearly crashed into one of these unknown objects. Some of these objects were caught on plane camera, and so, because it's me, we have some of that footage for you today. The pilot and his wingman were flying in tandem about 100 feet apart over the Atlantic East when something flew between them. Now, Lieutenant Graves said that the object looked like a sphere encasing a cube. The pilots were concerned because they were, a covert drone program, and government officials wouldn't have had them flying around fighter jets for fear of collision. It was this that had the Navy concerned that perhaps there was more to investigate with this particular encounter. But what was truly unsettling the pilots, besides the fact that there was an intense possible safety crash, was that these crafts were accelerating to hypersonic speeds, stopping and turning on a dime, which is not really something that human pilots are capable of. So what do the pilots think they were dealing with? Graves did speak out saying, we have helicopters that can hover. We have an aircraft that can fly at 30,000 feet and right at the surface. But combine all that in one vehicle of the some type with no jet engine, no exhaust plume? That's not possible. So what do we think, folks? This seems like something worth digging into, right? Suspicious? Hands up. Who's with me? I knew y'all would. Number 1, the 2004 series of spottings. So on November 14th of 2004, Lieutenant Alex Dietrich was piloting her FA-18 Super Hornet. Yep, that's a very popular plane, when she observed an oblong shape hovering over the water. It leapt into motion, skimming 500 to 1,000 feet over the waves at around 500 knots. And for those of us Canucks, that's around 925 kilometers per hour, which is faster than I can get my vehicle. I like to get it to like 120 and that's it. The fighter jet's onboard radar couldn't detect the object, but Alex's weapon systems operator in the rear seat, whose name isn't public for safety reasons, witnessed it as well. Now Alex quoted her recollection as, we were trying to call out what we were seeing to each other, and to make sure everybody else is seeing it. It's moving so erratically and so fast that our voices, our minds, and that our radio calls can't even keep up with it. Now look, the majority of credible modern day UFO sightings can be credited to those that work in the Air Force, and it should be noted that military pilots are trained at what they call REAS, short for, reconnaissance. Every time I say it, somebody corrects me in the comments, so I'm not even going to try this time. And referring more specifically in this case to the art of recognizing aircrafts by their shapes, paint schemes, unit insignia, and more. On one of the other Super Hornets that launched was Lieutenant Commander Chad Underwood, who was able to capture the object on an infrared camera. It was about 40 feet long, round and smooth, and quickly received the nickname Tic Tac. Yep, you guessed it, this is my favorite UFO story. Now, all of the footage that the US government has confirmed as authentic and, unexplained speak for itself, since I know we have the clip handy. And around this time, starting on November 10th to be exact, Gary Voorhees, a petty officer on the USS Princeton guided missile cruiser, had been reporting apparitions on his radar screens in the same area. Triple checking his equipment before he made his report, and being the main technician responsible for said equipment, along with having 6 years of Navy experience at the time, he described what he was seeing as impossible, and just seconds, an object had dropped to the waterline from 60,000 feet, hovered, and then zipped away at high velocity, making right-angle turns that were quoted as being confounding and defying gravity. Hey, relax, Bucket fans. I'm right here with you. The objects returned for the next week, with Voorhees quoted as saying, "I was able to see it on the horizon, during the night and during the day, and it was definitely a glowing object. Could I tell you for 100% certainty what exactly it was we were tracking? Nope." Now, footage of this event used to exist, with Gary being able to vividly describe his memories, but has since been completely scrubbed from the internet. So, hey NASA, wanna, pipe up? Number 5, you saw what at the airport? Flight operations at Vatican International Airport in Imphal, Manipur were halted for several hours on Sunday after what was described by officials as an unidentified flying object, good old UFOs, was seen hovering above the airport. I've got a direct quote: "Due to the sighting of an unidentified flying object within Imphal-controlled airspace, 2 flights have been diverted and 3 departing flights have been delayed. Flight operations commenced after receipt of clearance from the competent authority," according to Airport Director Shipeni Kaixing. Sources said the UFO was sighted by a pilot of an Indigo flight that was about to depart at around 2:20 in the afternoon, and all flight operations were immediately suspended but resumed around 6 p.m. Now, the UFO was said to have been visible until around 4 p.m. We've got another quote: "I have no idea what was going on. I was informed that the flight could not take off because there was some kind of object hovering in the sky, an unnamed aerial vehicle of some sort. Officials of the flight operator, however, were not sure what the object was," according to Bhaskar Salam, a passenger. Now, Imphal West Superintendent of Police Kush Shivakanta Singh said the object hovered for several hours, baffling everyone. He said, "We have no idea what the object was and how big it was. It hovered in the sky for hours and then disappeared. The IAF scrambled its Rafale fighter aircraft to search for them, according to defense sources, and they further said the aircraft equipped with advanced sensors carried out low-level flying over the suspected area, but it didn't find anything there." So after the first aircraft returned, 1 more Rafale fighter was sent for the search, but the UFO wasn't seen around the area. The agencies concerned are trying to find out the details of the UFO, as there are videos of the UFO over the airport. By the way, fun fact, as of 2023, India is one of the most populated countries in the world, and multiple flights diverted, so everybody around there had eyes on it. There has to be good footage somewhere. I'm just hoping it gets out here. As of the time of this recording, we just have a little bit. India has a legitimate government. They had legitimate aerospace safety concerns. Shutting down an entire international airport is a huge deal. Trust me, I've been to Pearson. So meanwhile, the mainstream media is claiming that it was drones. The announcement they lost the UFO was buried under the announcement that the government of India is shutting down the internet in the state of Manipur for the next 5 days because of the current violence in the region. Now, the online general public has made a suggestion that doesn't make sense to me, because once again, they're saying oh, drones. But how would an area besieged by crazy violence be in possession of one of only 2 multiple $1,000 drones that could fly for 3.5 hours and break the law without punishment? I don't know a lot about drones, but I did ask some friends who do a lot of drone footage, and they couldn't even think of a single quadrocopter style drone, which is the only one that could stay in place for that long, that would have anything close to enough battery power to have that kind of intensity to fly for more than a few hours. So if this is a drone, somebody, somewhere, somehow steroided the battery life. It's just not possible. Yes, it could be a weather balloon. We've all heard that explanation before, because that's what it always is when the government doesn't know what something is. There's probably never going to be enough evidence to say one way or the other, so it'll eventually be designated a weather balloon by one government or another. So I'm calling it now. Come back in 2 weeks, check this video. Alexa Morgan is saying it now. Somebody's going to say it was a weather balloon. Number 4, the 2015 Gulf of Mexico. A video uploaded 8 years ago to the interwebs is just starting to get some traction now thanks to a recent Reddit post. User 7R34 wrote in the description, "A friend of his took this video on his phone. The video is clear, shape and lights are visible, mentioning specifically pink flashing lights." Okay, I love pink, I'm a little biased. He sent the video from his cell phone through email, which is why it's compressed to a lower quality, and the uploader was trying to figure out how to get the footage back to its original quality, but admits he isn't the best with technology, and hey, neither am I sometimes. Thankfully, I've got an iPhone, it does it for me. Apparently, the platform location is a mile away from the Flower Garden Reef and 130 miles from offshore, and the UFO is around 8 miles away from that. So when the object started coming closer, it seemed as if our friend stopped recording, and apparently, according to the uploader, he got nervous and headed indoors, which I don't blame you. If I saw something weird in the sky, I'd be running away as well. The flight characteristics reminded him of the way an RC drone flies, but at the time, no civilian setup could go that far. Not to mention, once again, the battery power required for the trip. Back in the day, that just wasn't possible for a drone. Trust me, I know somebody that had one, one of the original drones. Just not possible. Number 3, Canadian Triangle. Okay, not Canadian Tire, folks. Relax, relax. This is not a reward system. And yes, I'll be the first to admit we don't know as much about this footage as some of the other entries on today's list, so bear with me here. I found this video also while surfing Reddit earlier, and while the site does tend to be the Wild West for finding credible information at times, I think my nonsense filter is pretty decent at this point. Also remember, this is part 4. We are 20 entries in. I gotta find something. Around 4 months ago, user Curious Ad at 5774 said, "Don't got much to say about this video other than when my dad originally sent it to me, I felt like it had to be a UFO and there's nothing else that seemed to explain it. Canada is notorious for sightings and I myself have seen a few. This was taken way before drones were being used regularly and I'd say this video is easily 10 years old." Alrighty folks, time to break this down. As a Canadian, I feel like I'm an expert now. While watching the video, you can see a number of different orbs in a dark sky and the way they move and interact cannot be explained by science. Now, user depth perception has an idea what it could be, saying, "This is pretty good footage. Yeah, it's dark and an old video, but if it's real, then it's clearly the typical black triangle that's been seen since at least the 90s. Yet another user, only capital 5393, was able to relate to the footage, saying it was exactly what their brother and mother described way back in the 90s. So we're validating the other point. They were driving in New Hampshire in the wee hours of the morning, going south, and this UFO came and followed them for a while on the highway. Now there was nobody else around and it got above them and just sort of followed them. The lights are exactly what they described though, how they kinda spin in a circle around the center light. Now this user has never seen anything what they described until that point. Now they would have sent this video to the other folks to, corroborate, but sadly their mom passed away in 2015. She was an Air Force flight nurse during Vietnam and had never seen anything like it before. She'd actually heard rumors about UFOs while being in the Air Force, and the sighting made her quite interested in the subject. She reported it and joined MUFON, and at one meeting she sat at the same table with Betty Hill and talked with them. So they really wish that their mom was still there to show her it, which, hey, this is fascinating. Like, the proof is there, folks. The proof is there. I keep saying it. It's there. Number 2, now you see it, now you don't. So back in 2014, the disappearance of the Boeing 777 with 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board led to a search effort stretching from the Indian Ocean, west of Australia, to Central Asia. So for context, if you didn't know about this, because I totally forgot about it, Flight 370 took off at 12:41 a.m. local time and reached a cruising altitude of 10,700 meters at 1:01 a.m. The Aircraft Communication Addressing and Reporting System, which transmitted data about the aircraft's performance, sent its last transmission at 1:07 and was subsequently switched off. The last voice communication from the crew occurred at 1:19, and at 1:21 the plane's transponder, which communicated with air traffic control, switched off, just as the plane was about to enter Vietnamese airspace over the South China Sea. At 1:30, Malaysian military and civilian radar began tracking the plane as it turned around and then flew southwest over the Malay Peninsula and then northwest over the Strait of Malacca. At 2:22, Malaysian military radar lost contact with the plane over the Andaman Sea. An Inmarsat satellite in geostationary orbit over the Indian Ocean received hourly signals from Flight 370 and last detected the plane at 8:11. So initial searches for the plane concentrated on the South China Sea. After it was determined that Flight 370 had turned to the west shortly after the transponder was switched off, search efforts moved to the Strait of Malacca and the Andaman Sea. On March 15th, a week after the plane had disappeared, the contact was disclosed. Analysis of the signal could not locate the plane precisely, but did determine the plane might have been anywhere on 2 arcs, one stretching from Java southward into the Indian Ocean, southwest of Australia, and the other stretching northward across Asia from Vietnam to Turkmenistan. The search area was then expanded to the Indian Ocean southwest of Australia on the southern arc and Southeast Asia, western China, the Indian subcontinent, and Central Asia on the northern arc. Now on March 24th, the Malaysian Prime Minister announced that based on analysis of the final signals, Inmarsat and the UK Air Accidents Investigation Branch had concluded that the flight crashed in a remote part of the Indian Ocean, which made it unlikely that anyone on board survived. But are we actually sure? Flight Officer Jack Chen on board a Royal Australian Air Force flight during the search for the wreckage was hampered by the remote location of the crash site. So beginning on April 6th, an Australian ship detected several possible acoustic pings, possibly from the black box of the plane, around 2,000 miles northwest of Perth, which is in Western Australia. Now further analysis by the AAIB of the Inmarsat data also found a partial signal from the plane at 8:19 a.m., consistent with the location of the acoustic pings, the last of which were heard on April 8th. If the signals were from Flight 370, the flight recorder was likely at the end of its battery life. Further searches were conducted using a robotic submarine, however the pings had been spread over a wide area, so the submarine didn't find any debris, and tests found that a faulty cable in the acoustic equipment could have produced the pings. We didn't find the first piece of debris, by the way, until July 29th of 2015, when the right wing was discovered on a French island, about 37 kilometers west of the Indian Ocean area that was being searched by Australian authorities. Over the next year and a half, 26 more pieces of debris were found on the shores of Tanzania, Mozambique, South Africa, Madagascar, and more. 3 of the 27 pieces were positively identified as coming from Flight 370, and 17 were thought to have likely come from the plane. 2 pieces came from the cabin interior, suggesting that the plane had broken up, but whether the plane broke up in the air or on impact with the ocean could not be determined. A study of the wing flaperon and a piece of the right wing flap showed that the plane had not undergone a controlled descent, so the plane had not been guided to a water landing. Some researchers note that the flight could have struck the water vertically, a possibility in which the results of one modeling study conducted before the flaperon's discovery could explain, the lack of evidence. The debris locations were used to narrow the search research area in the ocean, since some possible crash sites would have been unlikely to produce debris. Now here's the thing, there's recent footage believed to be from the day of the incident floating around the interwebs, and if you look closely, the plane just blips out of existence. So I'd love to know why. Like, my theory, there was a UFO up there, like they were diving away from it, and also, why haven't we found any human remains? I have questions. Number 1, Aviano UFO. So this footage has been around for some time and was released in the US by researcher Paola Harris at the 36th Annual International UFO Symposium in Denver, Colorado back in 2005. Now Paola lives in Italy and was given a 4th generation copy by an anonymous source who told her the video was recorded in Italy near the infamous Aviano Air Base, which is, kind of the center of a UFO controversy. According to Paola, the original videographer remains unknown and the object seems to be terrestrial in origin, more properly some kind of military prototype, according to some folks that might think that's what it might be. Now the feature in which the disc disappears at the end raises questions for the Italian researchers, and yes, that's why she thinks the military might be involved. But my theory, something up there. Now, she thinks it's very clearly a flight test, since the videographer was in position focusing the camera where the disc appears initially. The object isn't CGI, and no one has been able to clearly state what it is. So my thoughts, UFOs. Number 5, who wants to go to Wonderland? I'm officially kicking off this list with the most recent sighting on today's list, and for this gal, the one that's closest to home. If you know, you know. So sometime over this past weekend, multiple people recorded footage of a glowing orange light hovering in the sky over none other than Canada's Wonderland. So me, being the skeptic that I am, doubted the influx of videos that I was being sent until I finally had time this morning to sit down and watch them, and I genuinely have no idea what it could be other than a UFO. Like, originally I wanted to rate it off as one of the many millions of holiday lights they have glowing in the park right now for their Winterfest event. And trust me, they have a lot. But the glowing figure goes from being vertical in footage from one area to completely horizontal in another, and I'm talking like opposite ends of the park, and alternates between staying solitary and moving around. It personally looks nothing like any of the drones I've ever seen in this lifetime, both professional drones and personal drones, and while I'm not an expert, feel free to let me know in the comments if you think otherwise. Maybe the aliens just wanted to visit Winterfest? It's quite the cute event if you like Christmas. I don't know. Number 4, UFO over the Vatican. Alrighty folks, time to travel back a simple 13 years in history to the Vatican, and I promise this time I'm not trying to borrow the chronovisor. I promise. So, was Rome visited by unidentified flying objects? Definitely. And the sightings in the skies over Vatican City stirred newspaper headlines and numerous TV news reports in Italy. So according to reports, it seemed that a UFO flap was taking place in Rome, and that strange objects were also recorded on camera several times. The most important one is the footage of an odd luminous formation taken by 3 security guards stationed in front of the residence of the US ambassador to the Vatican. Now these were qualified witnesses since they are artillerymen, trained experts, in air surveillance. This was around 4 a.m. on the night of June 7th, when these 3 men belonging to the 17-degree anti-aircraft regiment at the Santa Barbara station spotted 3 spherical bright objects hovering the sky above St. Peter's Dome, right in the Vatican, right in the center of Rome. So they promptly filmed the unexpected nocturnal air show with, a cell phone, because that's always what you got on hand. You get a little blip. So from their point of observation in the Roman Monteverde area, they immediately stopped a police patrol because, they're well trained in spotting aircrafts, and they excluded the possibility of a commercial plane, a jet fighter, or a balloon. They described the object's swift maneuvers, mentioning, darting move towards the sky, a delta formation, and luminous dots suspended at about 300 feet above the ground. They added that there is no way a conventional airplane can do such things. The UFO disappeared and reappeared for brief moments, with sudden changes of altitude before it darted westbound at a 40-degree angle. Now the police patrol took the report very seriously, and the central police station in Rome was immediately alerted. The footage, more than a minute in length, was acquired by the Italian police, pending further investigations. Now thanks to the technical background of the witnesses, many TV networks took the news very seriously. Studio Aperto anchorwoman Elena Guarnieri introduced the segment by saying, we're gonna show you now an exclusive video footage of a UFO sighting in Rome, and this video was filmed by 3 soldiers, so take a look. Staff journalist Paolo Capresi then described the images, saying, they are 3 flying objects and they are floating in the air. They were filmed last night above Rome. These images were taken with a cell phone by 3 soldiers who were in service in front of the US ambassador's residence in the Vatican City, Monteverde district, 2 steps from St. Peter's Square, and were immediately handed over to the police. Now why did I say this all word for word? Even though I'm repeating myself, I like to make sure I'm using direct quotes, folks. We like to be credible around here. As you can see, there are no objects around to use as reference points that could give them the exact distance or size of the UFOs, and it seemed that they were spherical in shape and how they hovered above the Vatican. They appear and disappear often without changing altitude. The journalist concluded, almost ironically, the soldiers who have filmed filmed these 3 objects are based in the anti-aircraft division and are specialized in recognizing the flight path of the aircraft. Since 1978, it's the Air Force that is in charge of registering sightings. Now this sighting was actually preceded approximately 8 hours before by another relevant sighting. When the day before, at 8 p.m., many motorists traveling along the Via Aurelia and the A12 highway in the section between Civitavecchia and Santa Marinella said they saw a very bright circular object flying across the sky. Paranormal and other unexplained activity has been reported in and above Vatican City for years, but the increased reports of UFO phenomena immediately following the death of Pope John Paul II had many people in the field of extraterrestrial research wondering if there was some sort of connection. As well, there had been several documented accounts of increased anomalous activity in different locations throughout Vatican City. Yeah, once again, right after that death. My theory? The aliens were in town to pay the respects to the former Pope. Well, y'all know they've got a UFO in their archives somewhere. Number 3, Maryborough. So this UFO phenomenon remains unsolved after government authorities and weather experts failed to explain strange orange lights cited by hundreds of residents back in 2011. So at the time, local news outlet The Chronicle was bombarded with phone calls, emails, visitors, you name it, after publishing a story about the hovering objects, which had appeared in the night sky over the city the week before. Now, while all residents had similar descriptions of the glowing balls of light and their slow movements back and forth across the sky, the story did take quite an eerie twist. Nobody was able to successfully capture the unidentified objects with a camera. Now, we do have some of the commentary from the time to share with y'all. Let's start with, my partner, my brother, and I all saw the lights. I tried to film them on my phone, but when I later looked at the footage, nothing showed up. Very strange. This came from Phil and Karina in an email. I took a very magnified photo of the last orange orb, but it does not seem to have come out on my camera, according to somebody named Martine. It was very weird. The lights did not seem to be flying too high above us. I grabbed my binoculars to try and get a better look. It was weird. While I could see a string of lights without the binoculars, when I looked through them, I could only see one light, according to Azoic. And then Greg said, we saw 4 lights in a group. I tried to take photos with my camera, but they didn't come up. That's a lot of witnesses, folks. UFO Research Queensland Sightings Officer Martin Gottschall, who had studied UFOs for more than 30 years, said that he had received the reports about the orange balls of lights. Now, as for the objects not showing up in photographs, he said it seemed as though extraterrestrial crafts could make light do things that we haven't learned yet. People have theorized that maybe the force field around the UFO somehow affects the way in which ordinary light, like infrared, shows up. So for example, when people take photos of what they think is a UFO and there's an aircraft nearby, the aircraft will come out as defined while the UFO is hazy. Now, Gay Kayabiab, the local neighborhood center multicultural worker, dismissed suggestions that the lights were Chinese New Year's lanterns. Apparently, the Chinese population in that region wasn't very significant, and since it wasn't the Chinese New Year at the time, it was close, but it was already over, it just wasn't it. Lanterns are released as signs of good luck, but he wasn't aware of any celebrations, and it was very unlikely that they would be released for several days in a row. A Fraser Coast Regional Council spokesman said it was unlikely the lights were caused by aircrafts, but from the nearby airport. A spokesman from the Bureau of Meteorology said he couldn't think of anything weather-wise that would cause something like that, and directed the Chronicle to 2 different Queensland UFO organizations. Now, the Australian Army was contacted but didn't respond to a suggestion that the bright lights could have come from its, training area. So let me know in the comments what you think. Number 2, Colombia. So back in January of 2011, the highest volcano in Colombia was the scene of numerous UFO sightings, which according to some is due to extraterrestrials monitoring seismic activity in an effort to save the human race. Locals in the border region between the 2 departments of Huila and Coca, where the Volcan Nevado del Huila is situated, believe the UFOs to belong to extraterrestrial beings and have documented sightings with pictures and videos. Now, these claims were backed by local UFO expert Ricardo Ayerbe, who told the newspaper that he had witnessed an increase in unidentified flying objects over the last decade. Now, he explains that he was investigating the phenomenon and believed that alien beings have an interest in the geological area, which at the time presented at a level 3 risk level means, which means that there were some changes in volcanic activity. The activity of a number of volcanoes in the central Andes had not only caused alarm, but also provided a possible explanation for the sightings, according to this expert. We've got a direct quote. Quite possibly these sightings are related to these geological events that have occurred in recent months. At the moment, there have been sightings in areas of geological risk because it seems they have an interest in observing the risks that humanity is taking. Surely with the purpose of intervening to try and save the race from these risks, he explained, apparently with a straight face. Yikes. Number 1, Kansas City. This alleged craft was recorded last October in Raytown, Missouri. The person who submitted it said, unknown aerial object caught on camera, slow moving and sometimes translucent and sometimes rejecting light. Commenter stated, one of the coolest UFO vids yet. Someone's stealth tech is not working 100%. Now others state, incredible find, this is compelling. It's seriously mind-blowing and I cannot stop watching it. Now commenters suspect the object to be at least 7 or 8 feet across. As for anyone who thinks the footage has been faked or edited because the UFO looked blurry, one person gave a possible explanation saying, it's rotating and that's why it looked translucent and changing shape. It's also moving very fast if you check the change in size. But the reason that's taking me away away from it is the no change in the picture quality of the craft. It should get blurry due to the distances or changes in light or contrast. It all remains the same even when the craft is moving away very fast. Try imagining a vehicle moving past on the street. Now others wonder why there is a person or some kind of being running in the video and what they witnessed. The suburbs of Kansas City, Missouri have been very active with UFO, UAP sightings and reports for the last decade. So maybe it's time to take a field trip. Number 5. Alright, the 2019 Jackson spotting. Folks, we are starting today off with the usual disclaimer that if the footage or photos that I'm talking about don't appear, it's because they've disappeared from the interwebs between when I did my research and when this hits the World Wide Web. Which honestly, in my personal opinion, leads me to believe we're on the right track to the point where the men in black are watching, or I just have the worst luck. 50-50. So in August of 2019, an intriguing video surfaced on the internet raising questions that NASA can't easily dismiss. The footage sent to Buckrail website by an anonymous reader shows a mysterious flying object over Jackson Hole, which is located in Wyoming, by the way. I thought it was in Florida. This unidentified phenomenon occurred during the Perseid meteor shower, but it exhibited peculiar characteristics that challenged conventional explanations. The anonymous observer, working a night shift, initially thought it might be a meteor, but it moved way too slow and seemingly too close to the ground for that. So after checking flight records, no aircrafts were reported in that airspace at that time. And what truly baffled the observer was a sudden brilliant flash at the end of the object's trajectory, illuminating the sky. Such an occurrence defied conventional wisdom, leading to the tongue-in-cheek speculation of aliens in their sleep-deprived state. Hey, after analyzing the video frame by frame, experts ruled out meteors due to the object's brightness and slow movement, which lacked the characteristic streak of meteors. Some suggested it could be a drone, as drone regulations require visible lights, but the unknown flash remains unexplained. Michael Brotherton, a professor of astronomy, noted that the flash might not appear as bright in reality, considering the sensitivity of webcams to low light. A former Air Force pilot proposed the theory of a single-ship fighter jet, possibly performing maneuvers with afterburners and flares. However, the absence of military training airspace in the area and the unusual time for a solo jet flight raises many doubts. In conclusion, the mystery persists, with the leading explanations being a drone or a lone fighter jet. But the peculiar flash remains unaccounted for, leaving us with our unanswered questions. Was it actually a drone pilot's curiosity, a pilot's showboating, or UFOs? This footage continues to baffle experts, and yeah, it raises a lot of questions. So let me know in the comments what you think, because my brain is confounded. Number 4, the Varinha Incident. The Brazil's Roswell incident, known as we're gonna call it the V case, has resurfaced, igniting intrigue and sparking rumors of potential creature footage. Back in 1996, so the year before I was born, this incident garnered global attention, featuring a UFO crash, an alleged extraterrestrial encounter, and a subsequent military cover-up, despite official government denials. This enigma remains one of Brazil's most famous UFO cases, drawing UFO tourism to the city of V. Witnesses recounted a bizarre event in that January when a strange cigar-shaped object crashed in, the city of V. Locals observed its gradual descent, describing it as resembling a struggling washing machine. The incident was followed by the arrival of military personnel who cordoned off the area. Now, subsequently, a group of girls claimed to have encountered a strange creature with brown, oily skin, V-shaped feet, a large head, and huge red eyes. The Brazilian military later attributed this creature to a homeless man covered in mud, but the witnesses vehemently disagreed. They recalled the creature's fearful expression and alien characteristics, leading them to believe it was not a human or an animal. The mystery deepened when 2 military police officers reportedly captured the creature, only for one of them to suffer a fatal infection shortly afterwards. Now, the recent documentary, Moment of Contact, has reignited interest in the case, featuring interviews with witnesses and an anonymous whistleblower known as Military X. This whistleblower claimed to have been involved in transporting the creature's body to the ESA Army base. His description of the creature's oily skin and V-shaped foot only added to the mystery and credibility. Additionally, a former Brazilian Air Force traffic controller alleged that the US Air Force landed unannounced and dispatched helicopters to collect something in the city of V. The documentary concludes with the filmmakers pursuing video and photographic evidence, suggesting that such evidence exists somewhere in Brazil. Now, this incident occurred in a climate of increased UFO attention, both in Brazil and internationally. But with witnesses and whistleblowers sharing their accounts and claims of photographic evidence, the mystery of Brazil's Roswell remains a captivating enigma, challenging official explanations and leaving room for speculation and, Yeah. Hey NASA, any comment on this cover-up? I'm not expecting it, but it'd be nice. Number 3, Japanese-British crossover event. I swear, I know that sounds like something out of an anime, but I promise you it's very, very real. The 2011 British government release of 8,500 pages of secret UFO reports, yep, 8,500, rekindled interest in UFO sightings and their possible connection to world crises. The reports point to a curious pattern of increased UFO sightings during times of significant events, such as natural disasters or wartime. In the aftermath of the devastating 8.9 magnitude earthquake in Japan, y'all remember that one, there had actually been numerous UFO sightings reported over the country, with video footage showing bright lights in the sky and UFOs skimming over the Pacific near the quake zones. One notable incident involved a rare air defense video from Japan showing a UFO flying near the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan as it arrived off Japan's coast to assist with disaster response. These sightings have sparked discussions and speculations about the connection between UFOs and global events. The British UFO files also reference American UFO researcher Dr. Joseph Allen Hynek, who served as a consultant to the American Defense Department for about 15 years. The files suggest that Hynek's studies on world disasters and their relation to increased UFO sightings were influential in the UFO community. This correlation between significant events and UFO sightings raises some questions. I know I have plenty. The release of these files has shed light on the government's long-standing secrecy regarding UFO information, with accusations that people who reported UFO sightings were often ridiculed or dismissed. Furthermore, and hold on to your butts folks, it has been revealed that discussions about UFO phenomenon took place at the highest levels of government worldwide. Like in 1979, the House of Lords held the first full debate among lawmakers on the subject, acknowledging thousands of credible UFO sightings reported by British police, government officials, and members of the Royal Air Force. The role of the House of Lords in keeping these UFO findings secret for over 60 years has raised many questions about the transparency of government institutions. You don't say. Additionally, the British media has criticized the Ministry of Defense for labeling people who reported UFOs as nutters, while the House of Lords and even the Queen of England had knowledge of the secret UFO files. Yeah, you heard me correctly. The Queen knew about this and was just like, nah. Interestingly, the UFO files also mention the detection of 15 UFOs on radar approaching the United Kingdom on the day of September 11th. Yeah, of 2001. Remember that? Adding another layer of mystery to this phenomenon. These revelations from the British government's release of the files have ignited some discussions worldwide about the intersection of UFO sightings, major world events, and government secrecy, prompting further questions. I know I have plenty. Number 2, Gulf Breeze footage. So the Gulf Breeze UFO incident, a series of claimed UFO sightings in Gulf Breeze, Florida during 1987 to 1988 remains a puzzling chapter in the history of UFOlogy. Or is it ufology? Please let me know in the comments. At the heart of this curious tale is Ed Walters, a local contractor who reported numerous UFO encounters and provided photographs as evidence. This case drew significant attention from UFO researchers, skeptics, and the general public. In November of 1987, Ed captured attention by supplying photos of alleged UFO sightings to the Gulf Breeze Sentinel newspaper. These images, published under aliases to protect Walters' identity, showed a mysterious craft in the skies above Gulf Breeze. Now, some experts, like Bruce Maccabee, believed the photographs to be genuine. Walters' own accounts of his experiences are intriguing, yet highly controversial. He reported being immobilized by a blue beam and took Polaroid photos of the UFO hovering above his home. He claimed to have encountered the craft multiple times and even reported seeing land and aliens stepping out. He said the aliens communicated with him telepathically and presented him with a book of dog pictures, and then a blue beam of light lifted him off the ground. Hey, sounds pretty straightforward to me. These extraordinary claims were supported by some, including a polygraph test that indicated Walters believed his photos were real. UFO researcher Bud Hopkins also interviewed Walters and believed in his authenticity, citing the fact that Walters turned down a significant book deal and once again passed a polygraph test. Granted, there were some strong skeptics. Ray Stanford, a paranormal investigator, focused on the background of the photos and was convinced they were hoaxes. In addition, another UFO investigator, Philip Klass, thought the photos were inauthentic and not impressive to the public. And yes, somebody from NASA also raised some questions about the double exposure. We all know about that though. It's pretty easy to fake that. I don't think these were faked. Even within Gulf Breeze, the Gulf Breeze Sentinel's publication of the photos did lead to numerous reported sightings in the area. Locals described various UFO phenomena, including some glowing stuff, beams of light, and a craft. The Gulf Breeze case had become a significant topic of discussion in the UFO community at the time. Once again, it's going to remain shrouded in mystery and controversy. Ed's claims and the accompanying photographs kind of divided some opinions. I'm on team that it's compelling evidence. It's real. real. Number 1. The Arctic UAP. So the recent surge in reports of unidentified flying objects, or now known as UAPs, has brought the question of extraterrestrial life into the forefront of public consciousness once again. A recent incident involving a Chinese spy balloon over the US and subsequent unexplained aerial phenomena kind of raises some concerns and questions about what on earth is happening in our skies. So let's go back to February of this year when there was an incident that marked a series of mysterious aerial events. Let's go back to February of this year when there was a series of mysterious aerial events which captured our attention. It all began with a massive Chinese surveillance balloon that meandered across North America. This intrusion into US airspace prompted the use of military force to bring it down, leaving many Americans in disbelief that such an event could occur. What followed were three more perplexing incidents involving unknown objects. US fighters took down these objects over various locations, including Alaska, the Yukon here in Canada, and Michigan's Lake Huron. The fact that authorities admitted to having no idea about the origin or ownership of these objects deepens the mystery. However, it's the revelation of a fifth undisclosed incident over the Arctic Circle on February 1st that truly raises some eyebrows. The involvement of 8 or 9 UAPs detected over the Arctic led to the deployment of fighter jets in an attempt to intercept them. Now, these objects exhibited high-speed maneuvering, eluding the pursuit of military aircraft. Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Christopher Mellon corroborated this account. It's a clear indication of a larger issue, the lack of transparency and information from the Air Force regarding UAPs. Popular outlet News Nation reached out to both the Pentagon and NORAD, but the responses didn't provide satisfactory answers. NORAD denied allegations of scrambling fighter jets to intercept UAPs, attributing aircraft presence in the area to a training operation. Also, there's an unsettling silence surrounding the Alaska object come down on February 10th. Despite the White House's assurances that debris recovery efforts would be made, none of that was happening. So are these advanced technologies, espionage activities, or something beyond our current understanding? Now come on, I can't be the only one getting a bad case of deja vu with this one. This is almost textbook with what the government did to cover up the Roswell case for years.